Hi, this is Debbie and welcome back to Cheyenne Life. Wanted to go ahead and do an update garden tour today, May 30th, 2021, and hope that everyone enjoys what they see. I have gotten most of my plants out into the garden so far and planted. I just still have a few lingering seed batches here, some replacements for plants that haven't made it, such as cucumbers. I have had a lot of issues so far with cucumbers this season because it's been very cool and wet here in Cheyenne, Wyoming. But now the temperatures are pretty much sustaining themselves, even though today didn't do too great. We got it into a highs of 48 today, with a low is going to be 41, but as long as it's establishing a low that is higher than 40, we are still okay as far as cucumbers and tomatoes are concerned. So tonight is supposed to be 41, but it is kind of rainy and cloudy, so we shouldn't have any fear of frost or anything. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with that. As you can see, we have those few little lingering seed trays that are left, and you can see I have my cucumbers right here that have already came up, and I've got some acorn squash that is coming up as well. But I have started a lot of seeds in the garden besides the plants that I've already put out, and I've already started work, as I had mentioned before, of going ahead and getting this area tilled on the right side where I had my bird feeders and bird bath and flowers and things like that. I had mentioned that I wanted to go ahead and get this tilled up for an extended part of the garden, and we have started on that. So we have gotten this far so far. As you can see, we do have landscape fabric in this, which does have to come up when we're tilling up this portion. And we're not doing a no-till garden method here because this soil is actually very, very loose and is very nutrient rich. However, it does have that landscape fabric that does have to come up, but it does have years and years of mulch that has composted down in this section, as well as organic fertilizers and things like that and soil additives. So this will be a very rich section. Now we're only going to go about halfway in this side, so you're looking about where the bird feeders are. So you can see them hanging right there. That we will be tilling up. The rest of that will remain as it is, so that way it can sustain the hostas and things that we have already gotten coming up and planted in this area. You can see over here the jack-o'-lanterns that I have put out. I was a little worried whether or not they would make it, but they are actually taking off and doing fantastically already in this section. As you can see, we've already gotten that section tilled up. We still have some landscape fabric bits to pick up, and we've started cleaning up a lot of the sections of the garden because there was a lot of just debris and things that gets blown into our yard that then blows on into the garden. So we're constantly having to pick up things that are left behind by others, because we do have a road and sidewalk right over there, as you can see, and people that walk by, unfortunately, they throw their trash across our fence. There are a lot of things that we have actually picked up that have been thrown over on our side, and it just keeps happening. So I guess it's just a way that we deal with being in an urban garden setting. So anyway, that's just the little bit of drawbacks of being in an urban setting. So as you can see here, we have some of the flowers that I have put out. I've got out some Gerbera daisies that I had started, and you can see the plants right there. They did come up. Those are the ones that I had in the aluminum trays that I had started, and it looks like we got one in the middle that may not make it, but the ones on each end are doing just fine, taking off. And then we have, of course, some lingering seed trays here that I was just letting the seeds go ahead and see if they would come up. I'd had a little bit of trouble with those, and we're going to see if they actually do anything. And then we have the mint here. My lemon mint, which is this one, had started dying back inside. So I brought it outside to hope that it would come out, and it has started going ahead and picking up and starting to grow again. So that is a good effect there. And this is the sweet mint. It is doing a lot better outside as well, and has started to put on these long strands of mint, and the leaves are getting very big. So I may actually go ahead and plant this one into the ground and hope that it will perennialize out here. I did go ahead and pick up 2 azaleas to go ahead and get planted on the north side of the house, which is over in that front section. We have had pretty low success in trying to get things to grow on the north side. Let me go ahead and walk over there so you can see what I mean. And as you can see, as I'm walking, the flower gardens here in front of the old Victorian house, which you can see here, are quite large. So as I walk, you can see that us turning these into gardens kind of makes sense, vegetable gardens, because they are so big. So you can see how big they are here. And I do have some seeds planted all along this outer edge of this flower garden here, because it does get sun here. I did go ahead and plant acorn squash and also butternut squash all through this section. And this is the north side where we are trying to get things to grow. And so far, the only thing that we've been successful at is lilies. A lot of lilies have came up here. And we have all kinds of different varieties of lilies here. And of course, there's weeds, which we keep battling. So we have all kinds of different colors of lilies in this section. And as you can see, I haven't really shown the flower beds before, but just how large they are. They actually go wrap around the entire part of the house. And there goes my dogs to bark at something. So we do have quite a large yard here, which is actually the side of the house, not really the front of the house. But the way that our house is situated and the way it was split off in the property is that the front actually looks like the back, as you can see here, but is really the front. So this is the side of the house, and then the back of the house is really on that what looks like a front section over there, but is really the back. So we do have, as you can see, an apartment complex across the street, as well as some older houses and things through this section, and a lot of urbanized stuff, and you can see the sidewalk there. So that's how all of the trash gets thrown into the yard and then blows around all over the place. And then we have other flower beds that go along the fence here. You can see the irises. These are all yellow irises. And then we have lilies in the back behind that. You can see right there. And of course we keep battling the weeds in these flower beds too, and they're all mulched. So we still, and have landscape fabric down. So I'm not a real big fan of the landscape fabric, because even though we have it down, we still get plenty of weeds that keep coming in. So I'm constantly battling those. And I don't want to use any types of weed killers on this, because I do have so many of the other plants and it does harm them. So we have I believe this is a Japanese cherry blossom here. And then we also have a honeysuckle vine that grows up on the fence here. And then there are tulips all throughout here, but still constantly battling grass and weeds that keep encroaching into the flower beds. So we just keep at it, keep going, keep trying to keep those cleaned out, and we'll see how it goes from there. And along this fence line, we have Virginia creeper all the way down the fence. And this fence is probably 75 feet or more. So as you can see, it is a lot of Virginia creeper that goes down this fence line. So that was the flower beds, which you really hardly ever get a chance to take a look at here. And then now I'll show you what's in the containers that we have. It goes all along the front of the house, and then they get rearranged as the later spring and summer comes along, and depending on what likes more sun, what doesn't. I've had a little bit of both, even with plants that are supposed to love sun that don't really like it so much and they want the shade, so we just constantly move them around however the plants grow the best. So far we have a whole lot of dill that's coming up in this pot. I've got a tomato plant in this container, and I believe that this is a yellow pear tomato or a red cherry tomato. I didn't label these, and I don't really care when it's the little tiny tomatoes. We'll find out what they are when they come to fruition. I've got some mammoth basil in this pot that's just started coming up, and we've got some sweet peppers in this pot which came up, and they're now starting to put on their third and fourth leaves. I've got my lemon tree, which is still doing wonderfully out here right now, and it is really growing quite extensively, so I'm actually going to have to probably put in another support system in for this lemon tree and get it transplanted out into a larger pot, which I haven't done yet. I did go ahead and start some more of the pepper seeds in this little tray here, and all of them came up, and I can tell you the first 2 rows of those is store-bought peppers, the seeds from the store-bought peppers that all came up. And then also in the last row in the back, those were a pack of Dollar Tree 20-cent kaleidoscope blend bell peppers, and all of those came up. So very, very happy with the pepper plants, and I'm going to go ahead and get those transplanted into individual cups for a few days while they bring on their third and fourth leaves before getting them out into the garden. And we have a sage that came up in this long tray here, and some lettuce, another tomato plants that came up in these trays, and you can definitely see the mesclun there in that middle tray. And then here we have a fuchsia that is blooming away. This is one that I picked up this year. And then we've got some others that are cuttings off of the main plant that I had last season, and they are doing wonderfully as well. We have borage in this container, which is doing beautifully. The ones that are a little bit yellowed were actually transplanted a couple of days ago, and they're just now starting to get a hold into the soil as well, so they will green up as the others over here in the front will do. And then we have some marigolds and pansies and things like that in the flower beds in the back, and the parsley that I thought was going to die off in this clay pot actually picked up and is starting to seed now, so doing beautifully in that clay pot. And then we've got some lemon mint and lemon balm in this container, and you can see that coming up there. And then we'll move on to the main part of the garden. It's a little bit chilly out here, so if you hear me kind of shuddering a little bit, it's because it's chilly out here and I don't have a jacket on right now. Anyway, there's the rutabaga. I had thinned all of the rutabaga out, so it is a few inches apart, so they will start making their heads, I guess, or bulbs pretty soon. They're getting really taking off now that I had thinned them out, and I've still got to do a little bit of thinning I'm seeing there in the back section, but I did finally get that done and got it weeded. And then we've got some broccoli here in the front, which is now putting on its 5th, 6th, 7th leaves, because I just went ahead and got those hoed the last couple of days, so they're definitely picking up there. And then I've got my carrot bed here, and you can see the carrots. And I'm going to actually put in some more seeds because it looks like I came a little bit spotty on the carrots, and somehow or the other I got a random radish, as you can see, right in the middle of the carrots, and I did not have any radish seeds in my hand when that happened, so I'm not real sure how that happens, even though we do have some radishes right here in this section, as you can see. So I've got the French breakfast radishes right there in the back, as well as the black Spanish radishes right there. And then I put in, as you can see, this new tilled part, I did go ahead and put in some watermelon radishes right there in that section, just a few. We don't need a whole lot of radishes. We're not huge fans of radish, but I did go ahead and get several different varieties, and I'm thinking about putting in some daikon radishes as well. And then we do have some broccoli plants here behind the carrots as well. I just basically stuck things where I thought that I could get away with putting them. So we do have the broccoli here in the back. And then we've got some broccoli all along the sides of the garden in the back section. Right in here, as I zoom in, you can see those. And then the cabbages are in front of the parsley. The parsley is the tall green, dark green one there in the back with a lot of foliage. And then you can see my onions, which are actually going to seed in that section right there. You can see the old onions going to seed. Those are actually 4th season, I think, of onions. And they did put on seed last season. I just left them there and they went ahead and reseeded. And this is probably those going to seed again. And I'll just let them reseed themselves. But you can also see the cabbages over there. And there's more onions here that are 2nd season right in the back. And then as well as some chives on the left side. And there's also chives in front of the old onions down at the base. So we do have a couple of the newer onions that are going to seed, and I will probably collect the seed off of those instead of letting them go to seed in the garden. I will just let the other ones, the older ones, go to seed themselves. So as I come around here into these rows, you can see some lettuce that has came up, and that's a mesclun blend as well. And then we do have some spinach in the back section of that row that has all came up. You just can't really see it because it is getting dark here. And then I do have some fennel here in the front on the 2nd row. And you can see the fennel barely right there that has came up. And then we do have behind that some red leaf lettuce that is still waiting to come up. And we may have to end up actually replanting that section, so we will find out. And then we do have in this 3rd row leeks all along this 3rd row. They have yet to come up, or that I can't see them yet because it is dark, that have yet to come up in this row. So waiting for those to come up, and then I'll thin them out as they come up. And then we do have some cauliflower in between these rows because I can reach the greens on either side. So I really didn't need that midsection, and I don't put a tiller in the garden once it is already planted. And then here in this row we do have some collards. You can see all the collards are up, and I will be thinning those out as needed. And then behind that is some romaine lettuce that has all came up, and a volunteer onion that you can see over there in the corner in the back, and more cabbage and broccoli in the back, as well as a row of cauliflower that extends out this way. And cauliflower is looking good. It's starting to get some more leaves. I just have one dead leaf right here on the front on this one, and that was just because they got transplanted about a week and a half ago. Now we do have some squash that is in a row here in between the cauliflower and the peppers, but they have not came up yet. So just waiting on those. This will be the yellow straight neck squash here, as well as cocozelle. And then on the other side of the peppers, I have the dark green zucchinis and cocozelle in this row. And then we also have some bush Blue Lake garden beans that are coming up right now in this row. And then in the back of that, running across, is going to be garlic. I did put in about 12 cloves of garlic in the back. And then you can see a row of peas that have all came up. This is Alaskan peas. And then beside of that, we've got tender sweet peas, and those are coming up as well. You can see them kind of spotty through there, but they are just now coming up. And then beside that row before the tomatoes is a row of lima beans, which I've yet to see come up, but most likely they'll come up very shortly once the temperatures warm up a little bit more. All right, and you can see in the tomato cages, this is the super sauce tomatoes that I had talked a lot about. All 7 of the plants, the main plants that I had, survived. So we have 7 of those. and they are putting on new growth, so they are doing well. I only had one plant in the middle section that has been struggling, but it is greening back up and starting to take off, and I did go ahead and get those hoed and pulled up more dirt up around the stalks. So those should be taking off very shortly and really starting to fill out those tomato cages. I did go ahead and pick up, as you can see right here, 2 beefsteak tomatoes. I think these are the super steak tomatoes. So I've got 2 of those, and they did wonderfully the second that I put them in the ground and have already started putting on new growth. And I've got a row of black Krim tomatoes right here that have really started taking off as well. They're just still kind of small because I got them out here when they been transplanted when they were still small in the cups. And then I did go ahead and put up my backup super sauce tomatoes right here. So I had 2 of the super sauce tomatoes left, so that's a total of 9 right here. And as you remember, the super sauce tomatoes are supposed to put out Roma type tomatoes that are between 2 and 3 pounds each. So and they're an indeterminate, so we should have loads and loads and loads of tomatoes this season, because I've planted all kinds of different varieties. Now we do have I believe it's either a cherry tomato or a yellow pear tomato right there. I had 1 cucumber plant that is remaining out of the original ones that I set out. So this is a straight 8 cucumber. And it is starting to put on some extra leaves, so it is going to make it, I believe. And it will run up the trellis, and I did go ahead and put in some more cucumber seeds all along the trellis in the front section, which should start coming up in the next couple of days. And we'll start running up the trellis when they start getting their leaves on and all that stuff. And I did go ahead and plant in between the tomatoes red curry squash. So all along through here is red curry squash in this section. And I'm going to be getting some more red curry squash out in the next couple of days, because we love that particular type of squash, as well as the Tahitian squash. So looking forward to that. My asparagus beans are coming up. You just can't really see them since it is getting dark right now. And then I have dill that is